IndieLisboa Directors Talks é uma conversa sobre cinema entre a nossa equipa e cineastas presentes no festival. Descobre mais sobre os nossos filmes e acompanha-nos em IndieLisboa.com.
Boa tarde, bem-vindos a esta que é a primeira conversa com realizadores desta edição do 18º IndieLisboa. Esta conversa vai decorrer em inglês, portanto, a partir de agora vou mudar de língua. Hi, welcome. I was just presenting it in Portuguese. My name is Ricardo Vieira Lisboa. I'm one of the programmers here at the IndieLisboa Film Festival, and today I'm joined by three directors that have films at the festival. Camilo Restrepo as a retrospective, which already happened, where he showed his first feature and all his shorts, and also carte blanche of L'Abominable collective and a selection of films from there. Then I have on my left Shelly Silver, who is the director of Girls Museum, which will be shown tomorrow, so at Cinema Ideal, so at 6 in the afternoon. And then Maxence Stamatiadis, which is the director of the Day to Day, and which was shown yesterday and will be shown after tomorrow.
Yep.
So 30 on Culturgest 9:30. So maybe since this is a bit of a strange thing because none of you have watched each other's films, and to start I would ask you to briefly present your films, so both the audience which has not seen the films and you them yourselves can know what we are talking about. So maybe, Shelly, could you start?
First, I'd like to say thank you. It's very great to be here, and as we were talking, this is the first time that I'll have the chance to see Girls Museum projected in front of an audience, because It's shown a lot before, but never with me. So this is really, I'm really looking forward to it. Girls Museum, actually I'm going to take off my mask, is a film that started with a very simple idea. I was in Leipzig for Doc Leipzig, and there's a museum there, MDBK, which is the Historical Painting and Sculpture Museum. And, very big new building, and going through it, there are so many images of women as Mary, religious figures, classical figures, prostitutes, artist muses, and almost 98% of the art objects are made by men. And I had this idea of what would I have thought of these artworks when I was 12 or 14 or 16. And there was no way to access that because I'm different now. And so I decided to invite girls to the museum to talk as experts about each artwork. And it was a wonderful experience because it's one of the amazing things about a camera. It's a kind of chemical process. You take artworks in a piece of architecture, housed in architecture, you put girls in front of them and you film them with the camera, and then things start happening that are quite unexpected for me. And so that's the basic story behind the film.
Thank you. Maxence?
My movie is a science fiction story, actually based on a documentary material that I filmed over 8 years at my grandparents. So in my family, with people playing their own role, and at some point I took all the rushes I had. I'm also telling the story of how it happened because it's linked, and rewrote a story, a new fictional story out of this rush. And this story is a love story basically about an old couple, and the man dies, and 10 years later in the future the woman brings him back through a nap, and so her husband comes back, but it doesn't it's not the same, and so this is the premise of the movie. So it's basically a science fiction film placed in the future.
And Camilo, it's more difficult for you, but maybe you could talk a little bit about Los Conductos in particular.
Yes, well, thank you very much to the festival and to the festival team for bringing my films here. So actually, yeah, it's difficult because we have seen all of my films, but maybe I can only talk, as you suggested, about my feature film Los Conductos, which is a film based on a real story, the story of my friend Pinky. He was into a religious sect, and one day he decided, he realized that he was manipulated by this sect, by the leader of the sect. He escaped from there, and then he kept the desire to kill the leader, to murder him, not only to have an act of revenge, but also to prevent other young people to be manipulated by him. So the starting point of the film is to allow Pinky to, this friend, to realize his dream about killing this person, and then to imagine a new future for him. So it's a film about, we compose the film in the idea of imagining what could be next for his life, because he was a marginal person dealing with drugs problems and being marginalized in the margins of society.
Thank you. Maybe the first thing I would ask, and also a general question for everyone. You have just presented your films that have been or are going to be shown at here in Indie, and I wanted to probably make a first question that is broader, and that each one of you in a way relates to, which is you have all had short films at IndieLisboa. I've just discovered that before, and maybe not your case, Shelly, but in Maxence and Camilo, there's a very straight connection between your short films and your first feature. And I think Pinky appears in one of the shorts, and in Maxence, all the shorts in a way construct this feature film. And you, Shelly, just told me that Lamps, the short, is very different from this film. And so I wanted to hear a bit about from you about this thing of doing shorts, doing features, and bringing things that you tried in short format to a feature film, and using the short format as a moment of experience, of more, which is more free, in which you can do probably more things that then you can conclude in a feature film. I'm not sure. I wanted to hear you, so maybe Camilo.
Why? I mean, it's unfair. Well, so actually, I don't make a real difference between short films and feature films. I maybe think even that short films are harder to make because they have this compression of time. So of course, normally we think that short films, and I'm speaking for all of us, maybe we have this idea, we normally have this idea that a short film is like something that you make before making a feature film. It's like you try something there, and then you go and jump into something more important. But no, of course, as you said, that the main character of my film was already a character in one of my short films, but it was not a coincidence, but it was like a process of growing up with him. I knew him on the first, on the short film, and then I started a relationship with him. And then he revealed to me more aspects of his life that drive us to make this feature film, which is not related to the short film. It's another thing, but it's just something we at the point of the short film, we decided to walk a path together. And this is probably the main thing to say, that probably you're walking this path with people that you have been working with.
Okay. And Maxence, your case is very particular.
Yeah, actually, so I had made these short films with the same actors, which are people from my family, and I don't know, I think there is this big thing that a first feature is this kind of absolute thing that is really hard to achieve. Like, I don't know, it's hard to finance, it's hard to write, it's like, I mean, for people of my generation, it's a big thing. And I had this idea of, okay, I'm not gonna go through that, and I'm gonna be clever and use all this material I've got and do a feature like really quickly, because I had all these rushes that could talk one with another. So I thought I was being super smart, and then I was not, because it took me like super long to do. It was like a nightmare, and it was a nightmare in the making, because it all happened. It wasn't meant to be this film, so I had to reinvent everything, and in the end the editing part took me about 2 years, which is like basically what you would take to make a normal feature. So this part wasn't really so smart, but at the same time my movie is really about time and how time passed, and these people I've been filming for a really long time, and I think this is something that the short format cannot render, especially this question of time needs more time, I think, to be really explored. But otherwise, yeah, I think, as you said, maybe that now that there is this feature, I think the short form is also somewhere when you can still experience a lot of things. I don't think I will stop to do shorts. On the contrary, the more I do like a serious feature, well written and stuff, I have the need of having a space where I can do things more quickly by myself, and so I think I want to keep like both the practices.
So, I mean, I've been making films for a long time, and this isn't my first feature, but feature just having to do with length. And I agree, certain subjects take time. I mean, to take the girls through the entire museum from Cranach to contemporary photography, you can't do it in 15 minutes. And I've always gone back and forth between short, medium, long. And the long, I mean, Frog, Spider, Hand, Horse, House, for example, it's a very experimental film, but it just happens to be, I think, 60 minutes, right? So you wouldn't think, oh, this would be a short, but no, it takes time because it needed time. The Lamps does have a big connection, though, to Girls Museum, and I wouldn't have realized this except for this coincidence. Okay. It's about the Baroness Elsa von Freytag-Loringhoven, who's a very important figure in the Dada movement. She was a poet, she was an artist, she was a real rebel, troublemaker, and she now, people think, is the artist behind Duchamp's Fountain, you know, the urinal piece. And so, and this actually, it was a short that a friend of mine asked me to do. They were making a feature film about the Baroness, and everybody got a scene. So my scene was the one where she went to the museum in Naples and saw the room full of penises. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you know, it has gender issues, has art issues, so it's very similar, but of course, formally, it's completely different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, a question trying to bring all the films together. This is a bit harder, but I think it can be productive, which is, okay, it's cinema, so everything is about images and sound, but in your three films, and I'm thinking about Conductos, Today, The Day Today, and Girls Museum, in particular, the idea of image, a film about image, the image, and what images can do in our society, it's something that's very present. So Shelly's film is about painting, so images from the beginning to the end, and what they represent and how do we watch them now. And Maxence, it's very much about this idea of this app, this futuristic app that produces an image of someone that's dead, and how one relates to this image, which is not the thing, the person, and there's a difference between the living being and the image he produces now, and how one can work there in this interval. And in Los Conductos, the idea of the image is maybe more broad, but is the fact that you work on film and you want to make it on film, but also the thing that in your films, the films you've made, there's this very they are very powerful, the close-ups. So for instance, there's still images from Los Conductos that still resonate on my head. For instance, the revolver, or close-ups of the hands making some gestures. And so it's a very broad question, but how do you relate with making films about images, which it's not exactly what your films are, but I think in a way is there. So Shelly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the image, my images, right? Because the paintings or the sculpture, they're images, but they're also objects. And I spent a lot of time with them, and they're coming from the past. Even the contemporary ones are already hanging on the wall, and they're in some way dead, but they're also some way alive. Like, this is why I went to the close-ups and the dust, and you see how they change over time, but also they come to the present and into the future in terms of the way the girls see them. I mean, their identities are wrapped up in these images, and the images are changed by what they say. So for me, the imagery has a real primacy, but also the editing. I mean, I also, that's where my editing and filming also had my voice in it, because I showed what I found important at times. And then also, you can't have a film without the audience, so the image becomes very important for the audience, and that's why I wanted the audience to also look at each artwork and say, this is what I see, right? Or I agree with that girl, I disagree with the girl. So to take it out into the cinema or into the living room or the kitchen or wherever people are watching it these days. Yeah, so I mean, the image in this film, I mean, it could be a radio play, but no, it can't be a radio play, because you need, even though it's carried quite a bit by language, you need the images to work off of. I didn't know it was an app, so thank you for saying that. Yeah. So now I understand the science fiction side of the story.
Yeah.
The funny thing about your film is this the way you work with very simple special effects, and how they are a little bit
do it yourself, kind of
DIY.
Actually, now that we're talking about it, I realize that my movie is, in each shot there are at least 1 or 2 or 3 screens inside the shot, because the movie is filled with this technology present in tablets or phone and stuff. So as yours maybe with the pictures inside the picture, mine is filled also with screens inside the screen. And so, just to say a little bit, so it's this woman who brings back her husband through an app, and so it's an image of him coming back, and that's the main plot. But in doing so, the story of the movie is also the story of the movie and how it happened, because when I use all the images of my grandfather to bring him back from the dead, because he's really dead, then in making the movie, I'm doing the same thing the app is making in the story. And so that was important for me, because I think that was the main thing I was looking for, like the small moment when he comes back through the app. There's like obviously for me it's more present because it's people I know, but I think it can work also for the spectator. It's for a second you have the impression that the person really came back, and so the movie does what the story is about, and so I think this was really precisely even if it's for a second, that was really what I was aiming for. And so in this sense, the concept of image is essential to the project.
But the funny thing about, or at least surprising when I was watching it, is that in the first moment, your grandmother doesn't really like the new husband, and as the time passes, she gets used to it, and she starts liking him as the non-complete human image creature he is.
But
and so she in a way fell in love with the image of him.
But that's the thing. It's as she said in the movie, it doesn't work. He's like, at first he's kind of dumb, then he goes on, and I just spoil a little bit, but he goes on killing people because he's a bad robot and doesn't understand how it works. So it doesn't work, but as she says, it's better than nothing. And what I was saying, the movie does, like I do it like DIY FX. It's not really well done. It doesn't work very well, but for a second it kind of works, and this is it's as she say, it's not much, but it's better than nothing, and I think that was the moral of the story. It's like the technology we have is kind of shitty, it doesn't work very well, but it can allow for small miracles using images, of course, and that's what I was trying to show.
And Camilo, just so because I don't think I put the question well in the beginning.
It was
okay, but the I think the main thing was this the presence of this factory where they print T-shirts. And the first film I've watched from you, which is Impressions of a War, is also about this idea of impression in the newspapers and on tattoos, and this idea of an impressed image, and film being light being impressed on 35 film or 16 film satellite. And so this idea of your films very much being at some point about this idea of impressed images.
Yes, I understand what you mean, but I want to resume to the basic question.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I think that we have talked about something that we all have in common, that is that image is also a protagonist of the film. And I think that's probably, which is not my difference between you, and we have all different technologies, so how to bring these images to be a character of the film. So let's keep on that idea, and let's talk about what is an image and why an image can be a a character of a film, and then we can just develop some different ideas. It is the main idea of representation. Who is represented by who? This is in your film. How and why someone is represented. And also in my film, how technology, which technology and why, what was the reason that this person has to use this technology to represent someone else. And then also into my film, I'm just going to link the question to the idea of this printing process of giving the same, reproducing a product, an identity. So in the process of reproduction, and representing, there's the idea also of the representation of a community, the political representation of an individual. And that is probably the main question of my film, because it is a film about someone who was represented or was submitted by someone who was giving him directions of what he has to do and say, and what was the role in the world that he has to play. And it is not only about that religious sect; it's also about the role in our role in society. So also us as people living in democracy or people living in other kind of governments, the idea is, why are we represented by these power structures, and if they are really representing us according to our will. So just the idea, probably we are all into this idea of representation and who and why and all, and that I think is the main reason why image becomes a character in the film.
Yeah, and that would be the leeway for my next question, which is that in a way all of the films think so. If the films are about images, these images are about violence, in a way. So most of the analysis that the girls make of the paintings are that many of the women are being objectified or have been submitted by the painter, and it's a very common point of view from many of the girls that you have in your film. And as you were talking and discovering a bit before when we were in technical pause, is that both Los Conductos and the Day to Day have these the violent characters that have murder instincts, and that the films portray that and give this desire, murdering desire, make them true in the film. So I wanted to hear something from you about that. So, Shelly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, if you think of image making and technology, of course, paint is a technology, perspective is a technology. All of these things are choices. There are paintings in the museum, and there aren't weavings or other kind of artworks. But this question of who and what is valued, I think, comes to the fore. And it's if we were to make a story so far of what we've said, I mean, in my film, the girls talk often about war. There's a girl from Syria, or there's a girl from Afghanistan who was actually raised as a boy so that the family could have her do certain things as the only child. There were only girls in the family, or financial constraints. And so all of this kind of identifying, but also possibly suffering, by these stories told within the painting, to the point where there's a painting of Diana, not queen, but goddess of the forest. And I ask who do different people identify with, and almost all the girls but one identify with everything or everybody else, and they don't want to take Diana, who is quite glorious in the middle, dressed in white and being served. And it's only Hamza from Syria who says, yeah, I want to be her, but I'll be better than she probably was to people. I'll say please. And so the story of this is that you seem to have male protagonists who go towards violence, and I seem to have female protagonists that sort of have to reckon with the violence. So I'll just throw that out there.
Maxence.
Yes, you're right. It's a male and violence, but I think the thing is, the relation between violence images in the movie goes through fantasy, phantasm, and that's what I mean. The thing is, in cinema you can do stuff you can't do in real life. Then you can open space for people, especially if you like flirting with documentary and stuff. You can like offer space for people to express their fantasy. And I guess so. I had a grandfather who has murder fantasy. I think I do too, and so this was a place where we could express this fantasy. But actually, the first. So, because all the film is based on what my grandfather used to write. So he would write long pages about how he imagined killing everyone around him, like the cops, the neighbors, and that was the base for the movie. But then, so I told him, cool, we're gonna make a documentary about you, and then we're gonna reenact you killing people, and then you can fulfill your fantasy. But when it was time to shoot it, then he wouldn't want, because he was super uncomfortable with the image of him killing people, and he didn't want people to have this image of him. So he had to find a way to show it without showing it, and that's why all the murders he does are only shown through his hands, because he couldn't handle the image of him. So there is this weird relation between wanting to fulfill your fantasy in a free space of cinema where you can do anything, but even that is too violent for oneself to see, and so we had to find ways. So even if this safe space violence stays violence, and it's still as powerful, I guess. I don't know if it answers a bit, but
I'd really like to be the last one to talk. I can collect what you have said, and I'm feed by your thoughts.
Oh, and then after I can, because I wanted to answer what you said before, and then with personal questions.
Go ahead. I mean, this is a conversation. Okay.
Oh, just because you said something interesting about images becoming a character.
Yeah.
And I know in my movie, like TV reality takes a big place in the movie, because the characters are always watching reality TV shows, and the film ends, like the last shot is literally zoom inside the TV, and the characters from the TV reality becomes the last image we see before it's shut down. And yeah, I wanted to talk about TV reality because it's my big, I mean, the next movie I'm writing is about a TV reality star, so it kind of, cycle with the thing. Because, I think TV reality is the impersonation of image as a character, because we can watch people that are representing ourselves, even though everybody, the general opinion is that it's stupid and stuff. Actually, it's a real good representation of the world we live in. This is what it's supposed to be. Like, we see people that look like us. That's the concept of TV reality. And in that sense, I think it's the most accurate depiction of image as a character representing ourselves. And this is something we find in every country, of course. So.
Could I just jump in because, this male fantasy of violence and this idea of a safe space also based on what you just said, it's not a safe space. I mean, stories that are told become our identities,
Exactly.
So they create realities. So by making a film, this is not within a safe space. I mean, yes, nobody gets murdered in the film, hopefully. It's not a snuff movie. But I mean, that's also about my film, that you see that these paintings that are centuries old, no, they still have a very strong effect now. Yeah. Anyway.
But totally, when I was saying a safe space, I think it was the idea I had before, like it was a naive idea I had that it would be a space that was okay, nothing happens, it's just cinema. And then it was too hard for him to handle, and I understand that it wasn't a safe space, actually. It wasn't.
And in a way, the sci-fi genre and the kitsch element of some of the effects make it more palatable, so it's not
maybe less safe because it's more palatable.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, but it's because it starts to be a little bit ironic, and so it starts to peel off the power of this fantasy, which is really disturbing. But Camilo, please.
No. I'm really happy that you talk. I mean, just my idea, just to again try to have a conclusion of what we have said here, is that it's not only about violence, but it is also about liberation from violence. I think in all the films we have images as a tool for being liberated from something. And even these paintings being made by men are the tool for women to be liberated from a past history. And I think that, okay, please.
No, I don't think the paintings are a tool for liberation.
They serve as a tool. I mean, they can be discussed, and by that way being a tool to be.
Yeah, but without the girls, without the camera, without the questions, the way people go through museums, no, not at all. They're kind of accepted. They're anointed.
No,
but with this chemical reaction, yeah.
I disagree. I disagree because I think that this is only having the idea that people are not aware enough to be just without a camera and just seeing a history of painting, not being aware without this dispositive of camera that this is all a main representation of the world. I think that they, of course, I'm not defending male history of art, but I am trying to say that this enlightenment does not occur doesn't just appear because of the camera and of the girls. I think it appears in other several ways.
Well, the world, what's happening in the world, because these paintings have been around a really long time and have been consistently written about in certain ways. I mean, that's changed, but also written about largely by men. But I think that the world is changing around them. And so this, I think, the view is different. My view is different.
Of course, that's
than my mother's view. So I'm saying.
That's why I say that you use those images as a tool.
Yes, of course. Yes.
And so I'm talking about tools of liberation, and I think that you are not taking those images as per they are. You're using them, following your own ideas and making them to change by the view of your girls.
Yeah, I would say it's them doing most of the work.
Yes. Of course, but they serve as a tool.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
They perverting the use of that tool. They are using the tool in another way.
Yeah.
They're looking. Yeah.
The one of the things I like most in Girls Museum is that the girls are very different from each other, and most of the times they don't agree. on what they are seeing. And one of the cases is this girl that watches, sees a painting and says, "Oh, she's beautiful and very powerful, and she's looking at the camera with no care, and I see myself in her." And then we see 5 girls saying, "Oh, she's being objectified, and it's a poor portrait of her." And then the same girl, in the end of this sequence, she starts questioning herself about what was her first idea of the painting. And so even now, the perspectives are different, and there's no one way of looking at one of these paintings and reading them. And I that's one of the things I like the most. And also this very amusing detail, which is one of the more contemporary photography pieces you show, of this girl making a selfie. And all of the girls are very prude in a way, and say, "Oh, this is not something that one should do," and I don't know how she was obliged to make it. And then you just add self-portrait, and this just this little information gives us another way of looking at the image and understanding also that these girls are with all the prejudices of their society. And so it's very complex and moving and evolving, this idea of looking at a painting and thinking about it. But
I just wanted to finish my idea of a tool, but because probably I was not enough. I had not enough time to develop, but a tool is something that we use with a purpose, okay? But we can use also a tool with another purpose. I mean, we can just drive the purpose of the tool to another way, to another thing to do. And how you say, I remember this film from Harun Farouki, one of his first short films, in which one man said, "I was trying to make a vacuum machine, and then I got a gun, and then I was trying to build a gun, and then I have a vacuum machine." And this is to say that probably the purpose, the initial purpose of this tool of domination by representation was one, but then if you use the tool in another way, it could be a tool of liberation. And in this sense, I think that we can use images, because we were talking about images as protagonists of the film. We can use images to be the companion of our characters, to be liberated. In my film, just to make an example, I use images to allow this guy to commit an act of revenge that allow him to live in another way, that he was to reenact another way of living. I'm sorry, my English is not so good to have this kind of dialogue.
There's this therapeutic
kind of dialogue. But the idea of a tool is that the purpose can be driven to another thing, and this is how we can deconstruct the structures of power. We use a tool to consolidate the power, but we can use the same tool just to deconstruct this structure of power.
So,
all through editing.
well, I would say that, I mean, I'm an artist. I teach at an art university, and I would say that one of the protagonists of the film are the artwork in the film. I mean, they change over time, they're there. And what's wonderful about art is, yes, you could say it's a tool for domination that gets reworked, but if the art is great, it contains way more than being a tool of domination. And even a mediocre work, I would add, also provides a certain kind of multi-layered way of reading
course.
that changes, just like the surface of the painting changed, the reading of the painting changes. Yeah. So, I mean, I agree with you, but I would also hold out that they're not, I don't see them as tools, I see them finally as protagonists.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see them as tools because I think that it depends on who hold it, who grabbed the tool, who has the tool on hand. Do you mean who is going to be the person using this tool? And this is interpretation. Who is interpretation? Who is going to make this or that interpretation of the image? And this is the idea of manipulated, because I was telling you about who is having the tool on hand, and manipulation is also this, having things in hand.
But if you think of a poem, right, that yes, you could use a poem, but if the poem is great, it will always escape one reading, so that maybe even if somebody is abusing that poem, still through reading it, as you say, that, through understanding it, through the rhythm of it, maybe something escapes. I guess I'm just saying that yes, I made images of images, but I'm a little bit, I don't want to simplify one of my protagonists.
Yeah, I know, but the idea of having just like a pure art without possibly, I mean, I don't.
No, I mean, there is no pure art.
There is no pure art.
Film,
I mean, there is not such a thing that has not been interpreted. So in a way, we have to live in a certain context, and our work is living in a certain context, and images are being read in a certain context. In that context, they have this direction or another direction. That's what I mean. And then, well, you can use it as a tool of domination. You can use it just a tool of poetry without any political consideration, but also you can use it as a tool of liberation. I don't know, Maxence.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is that besides who is holding the tool, as we're talking a tool which are images, so art, there is something more to it than who is holding. I think that's what I hear from you, and that's something we can't grab or doesn't belong to anybody.
Yeah, it has a kind of, I mean, that's what we would hope with our films, right? That it's not depending on who's using them. It's like they have something in and of themselves that will have a vitality or an openness of reading. And so I would hold out for the works. But what I think that my film shows is that we have art history wrong in that always going to the so-called experts that all build on the so-called experts is maybe not the only way to read these artworks and to control these artworks and to bring other artworks into the discussion.
But I guess that's what you're saying when you're saying
I'm
changing
saying the same.
hand of the tool.
I'm saying the same.
Yeah.
I think that in a certain context, an artwork could be read like this. In another way, in another context, it would be written in another way. So it means that it's always escaping, and that's the idea of not being.
Yeah, but I think the main thing is that probably most spectators or most museum visitors or most people are not really aware of all the mechanisms behind the ways that art gets canonized. And for instance, in your film, again, it's very surprising that one of the girls is asked for the first time and gets conscient that the museum is curated by someone, that the paintings didn't just appear there, that there are 3 people, 4, I don't know, 10 people that selected these paintings and put them in the walls on these this way. And she never really thought about that, and she's probably 18 or 19, so she's an adult already. And this conscience of the system that produces images and makes readings and interpretations about it, it's something that needs to be stimulated, this conscience. And I think maybe in a way all the three films do that. All the three films say to the spectator, rethink what you think about the images you are watching.
Reveal the mechanism which is behind the production and the demonstration of images.
Yes.
And I think that your film does that. I mean, just let's take a look about how are they presented and how they have been built, these images. So I think this is the one of the main questions of being an artist. It's not only producing images, it's also questioning how we produce images.
And maybe Maxence's film has this very, I believe you already said so, but I cannot even imagine how difficult it must have been to work almost 9 years with the same images that you already had filmed, and you started re-editing and editing and changing and making and trying to make a film out of something that you had already filmed so many time ago.
Yeah, but actually, first of all, I think I mean, what I'm going to say is a bit like general, but I come from a generation that grew up with images. I mean, when I was young, I would like literally go from one screen to another, to the Game Boy, to the TV, to the computer, and then I think I spent like half of my life in front of images, if not more. So this is like kind of natural to use this as a material, and I think if in my movies there's a reflection on images, it's not at the base of the movie. I mean, I think I'm surrounded by images, and it's naturally something I would use. But to answer the question about like using the same, sorry, I'm gonna take off the mask because it's super hot. And about using the images, it's like, it's funny. It was a funny way of working because I had all this rush. I had a story I wanted to tell. I had things that were filmed but not meant to tell this story. And so I had to find ways. So it's when the movie looks like a documentary, but actually every shot is heavily edited and fixed, and like I cut heads, put them somewhere else, and then slow down by 100%. And so everything, it became like for a sculptor, like, you know, the material where I could build a story, and suddenly the possibilities I had were like really unexpectedly large, and I would find ways all the time. Like I wanted somebody to talk to somebody else, and I would go and grab a second of a shot before the shot starts, and we can see it in the right angle. Then I would cut, tack, and it would work. So from this material, I could do basically anything. So at first it was like super enthusiastic. I was enthusiastic because I discovered that I could do all of these things. But after a certain amount of time, you start going in cycle because you know all the images. I mean, I knew all the rush by heart. I couldn't find like one guy looking this way exactly. I knew where to find, and it became like as the film is about mourning also, and mourning of the character because my grandfather died during this period of time, and seeing his image over and again was part of the process of mourning. I think at the time when I arrived to this point where I couldn't see these images again, I had done everything with them possible, was also the time that coincided with the end of mourning. So that's like images became like a support for to mourn. Yeah. So in this way they were useful.
Yeah, and I thought when watching your film of it. So I thought of two other films. One, Strange Things. So one of the Pink Panther films, when that Blake Edwards makes after the main actor dies.
Okay.
And so he made a new Pink Panther film without the actor, because he was already dead, with all the rushes and cut scenes from all the 5 previous films. And so he made a new one. And also a Bruce Lee film that was made after...
Which one?
One of Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee film.
So Bruce Lee died, and they made a Bruce Lee film 1 year after. And also with rushes from other films and unfinished projects, and even worse, images from his funeral, because he fakes his own death in the new film. So okay, it's complicated. But and in a way, this is to say that watching your film, I thought that you worked with your images as if they were found footage. As if you were working with archival material that was not shot by you. That you made this distance.
Yeah, actually, you're not wrong. And the examples you give, I haven't seen these movies, but the one I had in mind when I did this one was the last Star Wars movie, the number 9,
yes,
which is terrible, by the way, but that's not the point. It's the Princess Leia died in between the 8th and the 9th movie.
No way.
And
what a spoiler.
Yeah. No, the actress died, not the character. And that was the thing. They had to bring her back for the last movie because she has been there for 30 years. And so, because of respect, because of the fans, because of anything, they didn't want to bring her back with 3D or with a face swap. So the way they found is to take an old footage from an unused scene from a previous Star Wars movie, and you can see documentaries on YouTube about it, and so you see 300 people working with these old rushes and cutting the princess off, changing her clothes, and staging scenes so character would interact with her. And it's really complicated because in the scenes they have, she says literally 2 things. So they had to stage people to talk, to do all the talking. So it's like, oh, Princess Leia, you want to go there and do that and do that and that? And she goes, yes. And it just doesn't work at all. I mean, the result is terrible. But when you see the documentary, what is super moving is that you have these 300 people working for months, with inside this huge corporation of Disney and Lucasfilm and whatever, to have this super poor result. But it's super moving that one would get into such trouble and such the deployment of energy of people just to be able for a second to bring somebody back, which is of course an impossibility. But I think there's something beautiful in that, and I think I worked in my own. I didn't have 300 people and millions to do that, but in my own garage room, I did the same thing.
And
I wanted to jump in.
Let me just add that Fast and Furious 7 also does that.
But they do it with 3D.
But I just wanted to bring this idea of found footage and having this distance. With the material, that is something that also I think maybe Shelly and Camilo have in their work, because Camilo, you have worked with found footage also, so images that were not shot by you and that you appropriated and manipulated and changed their meaning through editing and context, and also the Girls Museum is all about framing the paintings and making sure that the spectator watches a portion, or reframing and making small black squares where you can see one detail, or looking really close to the surface of the object of the painting. So this idea of working with images as found footage with some kind of distance.
But even, before I started teaching, I was a film and video editor, and so you would get this footage, very much like found footage, and they would say, oh, we wanted you to do this and this and this, and you'd say, how is that going to happen? And I think that, because I do my own filming typically and my own editing, there is this cut where when I'm the editor, this is the footage, and I could get pissed off, like, why didn't the camera person focus better? But there is this real distance that takes over when I start editing. But that's, maybe you had something to say. I just wanted to add that there is this, even if it's my own footage, I have then.
You have always this
I have a distance.
Yeah, like when you edit every footage, because like found footage, like it was done by somebody else.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to jump into this idea of sculpting the images that you said, Maxence, which I think is a very interesting field to discuss about, because what is to sculpt images? It is probably give to images another dimension, no? Which is not the dimension of the image. How we can sculpt images in films in which images are the protagonist of the film. And I think that the sculpting images is what you do when you bring someone else to discuss about an image that is already hung in a museum. I don't know, I'm just giving some ideas of how we could sculpt, make a new dimension of images. Not only about found footage, but I think that when we use found footage, it's also sculpting with images, because we give one image another dimension, as in a collage, as in a certain way, given we're bringing one and another reality to be confronted. And in this confrontation, when we are giving another dimension to the first reality. We are making something like a cubism tableau painting in a way, bringing different points of view, which was the idea of cubism in a way. So I think that in your films and in my film we have this idea of sculpting images, image being a protagonist, but images being confronted to persons too. I don't know, it was my contribution to the discussion.
And then, of course, there are images of the people. So I used to be quite, I don't want to say against, but I personally did not break the image. Like I would hack one image next to the other in editing and make these kind of surprise edits, but I typically did not do anything to break the rectangle like you're talking about, to collage it together. But then there have been instances where I do that, like in Girls Museum, where I do take the time to, okay, there's just zoom in on this, but you're not zooming in on it. It's just you're looking at a black field with a rectangle. So I think that there are many ways. I think also one of the ways I sculpt the artwork and the images is through extreme close-ups, where all of a sudden, you see a very realistic painting, you get close enough to it, and it's just like a field of dust or slashes, and this gives it a whole other sense that you couldn't even see with your eyes. That's the magic of video and zoom lenses and getting the museum's permission. So I think that there are many ways of sculpting, and I think it's really
close up is a way to be into fragment.
Yeah,
it's a way to destroy a close up.
And also you see the mystery of the painting, because the painting was done through a series of abstract strokes that go together to produce a very coherent image. But anyway.
But I think that when you make a close up, you're destroying the unity. And you're going into the fragment. So
or you say that it's another unity, right? You actually, with painting, you discover something else. You discover how it's made, that you're privileged. That's why people always, like when I look at painting, you go far away, you see usually the more imagistic reference, and then you get close up, and this gives this kind of excitement. Cézanne was the expert of this, building space in these very abstract ways where no matter where you stand, you're vibrating between an image of a landscape and just repetitive strokes.
Yeah, of course, because we all know, excuse me, just one last thing to add, because when we go to the fragment, just in something that the fragment, we all know that devil is hidden in the detail.
No, what I wanted to add is but to answer what you were saying, I get the feeling, without having seen your movies, that the way of sculpting the images for your film is also by reframing. This is a part of it. From what I understand, close-ups take also a big part in yours. And I think in mine, it was really the technology that is not that much of this is. I did what I could with that, but it's also really the technology, because now we have all these apps that gives us the accessibility to transform images. I mean, it all started because I saw this app where you could have a face on yours and like a mask, like a face swap, and so I think my way of sculpting was using all this technology to for example, the main example in my movie is so when he comes back as a kind of robot from the dead, he has a little logo running above his head, and so I would take all the images, just put that on with the tracking thing, and it would become something completely different than somebody who was because my grandfather would never talk, he was really this poker face character. So in the first part of the movie you see somebody who's poker face, and in the second one you just put something above his head and you see a robot that doesn't work, and it changes completely the sense. And I think technology was my main tool.
Yeah. So I was told that we have concluded our time. So just to make sure that no one forgets, the day today Maxence film will be shown after tomorrow at Culturgest. And
could you give the day of the week and the time that it will be maybe even the place?
Yes. So after tomorrow, Monday 9:30 at Culturgest, Maxence film, the day today. Shelly Silver's film Girls Museum will be shown tomorrow, Sunday, at 6 in the afternoon at Cinema Ideal. And Camilo's films have already been shown. Sorry. In fact, they have been shown before in other editions of the festival. So probably we'll have, I'm not sure if they are going to be ever shown again, but probably in Lisbon in the next few days. I hope so. Thank you so much for your patience and dedication, and obrigado.
Obrigado.
Obrigado.